To answer your question, I was a horrible student in grade 9. I passed English, gym, and French, and that's because I was dating a French girl. But my teacher at the time was like, at the rate that you're going right now, you're not gonna graduate high school, you're gonna be a loser. She bet me $50 that I wouldn't be able to graduate with my class on time.
So was this like I want to spur this kid on, or was it like, you're not gonna do it, I'll bet you $50, you're an idiot? I'm curious the end of the story. Did she pay up?
She didn't. That was the thing. She did not. She was just
ashamed of yourself.
I know.
Welcome to another episode of Efficient by Design podcast. Today we have my brother Brad co-hosting with me, and we have Mark Rason with Remarkable Works, and IG is how you may know him. And you've done some IGTV stuff. You have a variety of different things you've been involved in. So Mark has got a tool belt from us years ago, and we've kind of had parallel running growth to our social media platforms. You've become quite the videographer and video builder, as Brad has in his realm as well. So if we kind of start back like with how we got in touch originally, what is your recollection of that connection?
So I had a dreaded nylon tool belt just off the shelf that I had bastardized, if you can say that, kind of MacGyvered. And I remember doing a video on it where I had I wanted the speed square slot to sit flat. I just wanted it to sit nice and flat, and you can't find a pocket like that anywhere off the shelf in the big box stores. So I had cut like a slit in the back of it so that it could sit flush. And I think someone on that video was like, oh, you should check out, and tagged you in it. And at that time, I don't even think you had been doing it for other people. You were just doing it for
barely, maybe
for your crew, because you were still framing.
Is this 4 years ago?
Guy, don't ask me about time. I am the worst.
It's a long time ago. Anyway, okay.
So I remember kind of, first of all, I geek out over gear, tools, like anything to do with making my life easier. I'm all about it. So when I had this tool belt, I was like making this huge rig, and I remember being on my front lawn and telling my wife to film like this panoramic view of this tool belt that I was so proud of. And it just looks like a dog's breakfast. Like, you look at that footage now and you're like, well, this is awful. And it's like, it looks so stupid. And I remember when I found your page, I was like, oh my God, I love the cleanliness of this. I love how sleek it is. And what I liked the most was that it was coming from someone with a trades background. So you had the design, the design was kind of focused as like, again, efficiency with the forefront and trying to make your life easier. So you knew that both bags can't be the exact same, just on different sides of your, hip, because different tools go there. And like most people are predominant with one hand. So it's very much like a really good workflow condensed down into this tiny kit. So I remember talking to my wife about it, and I was like, all I want for my birthday is a tool belt. And she was like, you have a tool belt? I was like, no, I don't have this tool belt. And then I'm like pricing it out, and I think I made like a little video on like the purchase of the actual tool belt. And I think that was the first time, and I'm only saying that because I kind of went through our little memoirs on Instagram. So I think that was the first time that we spoke. I bought this tool belt, but I had so many questions, and you just made yourself available to be like, hey, this is what you want, and this is what you should have, or whatever. We kind of talked. And then I remember I got the tool belt. I bought it while I was shooting a show, and your store opened on like a Wednesday morning or something for me, and I'm 3 hours ahead of you being in Toronto. So I was like, I have to go to the bathroom. And I'm like head of construction. I'm the only one on the tools for this TV show. And I like walk into the bathroom, and I'm on there for like 20 minutes trying to buy this tool belt.
Probably pretty normal though.
No, 100%. So it was totally on brand. Everything went really good. And I forgot to buy suspenders. So then I remember reaching out, and I was like, hey, like whatever. And my wife is like, I'm going to buy you the suspenders. So then like the first month I got my tool belt, and then I had to wait another month to get my suspenders. I had my kit. Everything was great. But again, I had that theory of like, I wanted to load as much shit into this tool belt. Can I say shit?
Well, I was just going to say, because you ordered online, you made a shit purchase.
Yeah.
That's what's been in my head for the last 10 seconds. So
Yeah.
yes, go ahead.
And if I'm talking too much, you guys just let me know, because this is like
That's what we're here for.
whole word salad. But I basically bought the tool belt, and I wanted it to be as versatile as possible without thinking about majority of my work is interior finish work. And I bought it kind of like going into framing. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to need this for nails. And I do a lot of decks as well. So the bags were like a bit bulkier for when you got brand new cabinets and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy now a bag to go on the one side to kind of like condense down the kit. So in the warmer months, I'll have this set of bags, and then the other months I'll have this set of bags. And then we hopped on a Zoom call, because I think you're like, yo, this guy's buying tool belts like crazy over here. How many belts do you need? And then we had that conversation, and I remember I was like, I want a clip in a certain spot. And you're like, no, don't do that. Remember that?
Yep.
And I was like, no, I think it could work. I think it could work. And you're like, well, this is why we haven't done it. And I was like, can we just do it for me, please? And then you're like, okay. I think you reluctantly said yes.
Yep. Because I will deal with lots of customers where they'll make a request, and I'll be like, just like I mentioned to you, like I haven't done that for these reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if this is what you want, then yep, we'll make that happen. So we do kind of give recommendations when people make requests.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, unless it's something completely outrageous that I have to just say no to,
Mm-hmm.
like sure, yeah, we'll give it a go, and you can experience for yourself. Maybe you can figure a way to make it work.
Yeah.
So
Where did you want this clip? Where was this special spot?
It's just right on my hip, like whoosh, you know what I mean, like whoosh.
So on the belt, like on the actual,
yeah,
not on a bag, not on. It was actually up high on the belt.
So you replace the bit index with a clip. So I think we went with a 2-bit and then a clip.
Yep.
Because on my MacGyver tool belt, that's where I had my tape.
Mm-hmm.
So originally I took a front worn and I turned it around, and I had my tool belt, I had my tape measure over my butt. And then as you get older and lazier and things don't move as agile, I noticed reaching around your body for the most used tool wasn't really an efficient use of time. So I changed it, and then I got so used to it that that was one of the things that I had found, because on the original setup that I had, I put the clip on the outer bag with thinking that I'll be able to have the tool belt, and it was just a little bit lower, and it just didn't kind of flow as well. And I remember when Luke sent me that, and he put my tree on the bag and everything, and I was like, I absolutely loved it. And then, so anyways, I get this kit, and I am like a junkie for creativity. I love the challenge of coming up with an idea and bringing that idea to life. So I started a YouTube channel, and I was like, okay, what am I into? And very much trades kind of specific, but I've got 2 young kids. I got a family. I don't have time to film a whole entire build, or like even bring the cameras out on a job site to be like, hey guys, can you just mindful of my shot right now, please? So then I was like, I didn't want to get into tool reviews or whatever. So I just kind of like started filming the things that I was interested in. And if you go back and watch the first tool belt, like what's in my tool belt thing on YouTube, it was the most awful piece of cinema that you'll ever see in your life. But it did really well. And then I found that like a lot, I don't know how it did for sales or anything on the back end of it, but for me, so many people had the same kind of mindset that I had, in terms of like, it's just refreshing to have a belt or a system that is designed with, the actual usage of the tools in mind, versus like, okay, let's just slap some bags together. And I'm not here to talk smack about anybody's bags or pump your tires at all, Luke. That's just what I was attracted to, or why I was attracted to it, because it was the first time that I had kind of walked in and been like, okay, I could put my thing here. I could put my angle finder there. I could do, and like the customization for my needs, it was the first time that were checked off all the boxes.
So that first video that you're talking about with the amazing cinema, was that with Luke's belt?
Yep.
And was that one of the first videos that you did online kind of thing? Or is that like way down the road?
I think so. No, I think it was like, it was like the first time where I wrote out a script.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I'm going to go out into the garage and try and film this while my kids are screaming and my wife is yelling at them to like be quiet. And I'm just like, you guys are really helping me here. The lighting is
you had
awful.
a Timmy's.
Yeah, and I put the Timmy's in the thing. I always try to bring like a little bit of humor to it. Yeah. I get a lot of flack for that sort of stuff. But it is it's the thing I get complimented on the most. And I get like the belt. And I don't know if you get that feedback a lot, but even when I wear it out on a job site, or I've been in the like people's driveways of clients just working, and people like, that's a real nice tool belt. Like, you must know what you look like. You know what you're doing. Well, not really, but fake it till you make it, I guess. But that to me, I was like, okay, there's a lot of interest here. And then I got the additional set of bags. And I had I've been working on finishing my own basement. So I was like, okay, let's give it a good run, and we'll kind of go through a little bit more now that I kind of have a better understanding of storytelling and working a camera and just different things. I put together another video, and that was the one where I kind of like sneaked down into the basement. I got this like new package, and I was like, it was the first time I introduced like two characters, me playing both of them.
You have glasses on in one of them. And yeah, that was good.
Yeah. And it was like a really funny, like just a quirky little bit that I did. And it also led to a very interesting conversation with my wife, which we can get into in a little bit if you want. But it was for me, it was just fun. And I wanted to try and help Luke as much as I could, being on the other side of the country, and you were just starting out your own business and that sort of things. And we were getting close to Christmas. I think it was last year, the year before. So I was like, I want to get this video out in November so that we can have, we could drive it for whatever sales and stuff, because over the years, Luke has become like a good kind of resource and friend. I'm happy to consider you a friend. Where you can reach out to and just kind of like get opinions on and all sorts of different stuff. And I love watching good things happen to good people. So the growth of Akribis has been phenomenal. And I think what ultimately did it for me was you almost getting robbed here at the new shop and then not beating up those people that tried to rob you. I was like, he's a different breed of human, because I would have went full blown Jumanji on that guy.
That's awesome. Okay, so in regards to like our interactions, getting to know each other a little bit, that lays that out a bit. Now you mentioned you're from the other side of the country. So some background just for you, kind of give us a snapshot of where you're from and what you do there. So you've got two young kids. And like, when did you kind of get into the trades?
I kind of fell upon it. I've always been building as, I'm not going to say a hobby. So my uncle had a business. He was a teacher. He was a custodian at a school, and he had like summer months and stuff. So to fill his summers up growing up, he was a fence and deck builder. And I loved it. Hated digging holes, and that's what I did for
digging is the worst job.
Large part of it's like the worst.
But that's what you get started. Like, you go to any construction, like you are on hole digging. You're carrying that thing over here.
But you sound like, when you're full of like piss and vinegar as a kid, you're like, okay, I want you to dig this hole. You're like, I can dig a hole. Yeah. No problem. I've been digging since I was like 2 years old. No problem. And then they give you the clam clamps, and you're like, what the hell is this? What is this? They're dull. Yeah. They're like, you hit it in and it just vibrates through your soul. You're like, absolutely not. Am I digging with this?
Yeah. And you're like, this is not a sandbox.
No.
Exactly. Well, there's the movie digging. Yeah. Where people digging a grave or whatever. And they're just like shovelfuls. And the next scene, it clips this like, 7 foot deep, perfectly square hole. I'm like, have you ever dug a hole? Really?
It was an excavator for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if you were with me when there was a new guy who was super keen. I don't know if it was even Nick that's in the shop here, where we're like, he was so keen and up for whatever task we gave him. He showed up in the morning, what do you want me to do? I'm like, we need you to dig a 2 foot deep trench across the driveway here from there to here. And he's like, okay, where's the shovel? And we were just like, no, we're joking. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. But he was just like up for whatever needed to
And
be
he
done.
would have done it if you
I
actually
bet you
needed
he's
it.
super successful right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
I bet you he is.
It was shocking. Okay, so anyway, so you're having to dig holes for fences.
Yeah, and then I learned that really early that I don't like hole digging. I don't like concrete work, but I love sawdust. I love building things. I love the ability to like basically do what Luke has been doing with me for the last 12 and a half hours of driving around being like, I built that. I built that. I built that. And I'm also like, I'm just learning this as I think I was like probably in my 30s when I figured out how creative I actually am, because I never really gave it much attention growing up, was like kind of creative juices. But when you actually kind of like look back in hindsight, you're like, no, like that was like a special type of person to like make your own hat because you wanted like a specific logo of like, you know, like I wanted it to look a certain way, and like, you know, it costs a fortune to go and do it that way, but like, that's my hat. There's only one of them. I made it. And when you get compliments on it, you're like, no, you can't. No, you can't. This is my hat. This is my hat.
Well, you guys, I find, are kind of like brothers from another mother in a sense that the stuff that you've talked about are very similar to things that you did. I remember in high school and years after, and you've become super crafty and into all kinds of building and projects, and you never did that as a kid.
No, like, but similar to you, I would say I probably thought that there was a creative side, but before I started building with Luke, I didn't have the ability to really create stuff with my hands, and so after doing that for years with Luke, I think all of a sudden I realized, oh, this isn't just for building other people's houses and making money. Like I can, man, there's so many options, right? But like I remember in high school,
Did you sew a patch on a hat too? You made your own hat.
I was gonna say, this is awful actually. But when Tommy Hilfiger was like the thing back in the day, like this is like in the late 90s or something like that. I remember like I got this. So, you know, at Superstore, if you buy enough, this is back in the day, if you would buy enough groceries, you'd get like a free item. And I remember my dad got like this free like red rain jacket he's like, yeah, we bought $300 worth of groceries and they gave us this free. And I'm like, that's kind of a lame jacket, but it's got the red Tommy Hilfiger color. And I'm like, I wonder if I took one of my old Tommy Hilfiger shirts that I got from Valley Village, cut the tags off, if I could put them over the PC President's Choice logo. I went to school and people were like, dude, where did you get that jacket? And I just didn't say anything. I was sewing like labels, and then that became this thing. I'm like, I don't even have to, pay the money. And I ended up selling that jacket to some kid who still probably thinks it's like this like legit Tommy Hilfiger jacket.
Bootleg and Tommy Hilfiger. That's why he doesn't like us. Okay.
So you made your own hat?
Yes.
In high school, very much the same. And but for me, it was our high school logo. I wanted, I don't like the Patriots now, but we were called the Patriots back in the day. And we had like this whatever logo. And I remember being like, I was like, I just wish like our school had hats, and like for whatever reason. And I went and I cut off one of the embroidered track pants that we had, and I stole my grandmother's sewing kit, and I'm like here just pricking my fingers trying to get this thing, and I stitched this hat together and I wore it to school, and everybody's like, where did you get that? Where did you get that? Can I have one? I was like, absolutely not. Because I worked at Tim Hortons and I can't afford to buy hats off of whatever. But I've always, like, again, looking back as an adult, I've always had an idea and executed. And for me, that's what the trades kind of gave me, that ability to, I call it solutionize, but you're problem solving every single day. So to answer your original question, I'm a Finnish carpenter by trade. I have like DNA is a super weird thing. My dad's very like techie and very much a computer orientated person. And everyone else on my mom's side, they were all carpenters. And I didn't know that until I kind of got that bug. And for me, you walk into a space and you're like, this is all sorts of a situation. How do we make this look appealing? Luke's kitchen is a perfect example of that, with like the cupboards all over the place and like coming up with different, ways to make things look proper. I just have such a passion for problem solving and the trades were a perfect outlet for that. So
was that something that happened, like you said, not until your 30s? So like when you were in school, high school, was that kind of something that started to develop there? Like, were you a good student? Were you a sporty guy? Were you like what was that?
I was like not the worst player on the sports, but not like a starter.
Yep.
Just enough to like kind of fit in. I've always been a bit of like a loner. I love my alone time. This is like the Scorpio in me. So for me, I liked the idea of playing sports. I've always been kind of active. But I wouldn't consider myself creative until you start having these conversations and you look back. I was in the drama club. I joined that club to get out of going to mass. I went to a high school, and then we always had like the drama club had their like rehearsals because we had to sing in the thing. And we didn't have to go to mass. So I was like, sign me up for that class.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I loved the idea of being able to express certain things and making people laugh. And I've always loved the art of storytelling. And I used to write because like I'm an 80s baby. So we didn't have the internet growing up. So I used to, write short stories and like actual pen on paper type of things. So to answer your question, I was a horrible student in grade 9. I passed English, gym, and French, and that's because I was dating a French girl at the time. So I kind of like snuck my assignments and everything to her, and she kind of completed it for me.
Brilliant.
It was great until my English teacher, I wrote a story, which my mom still had the story, and I read it recently, and it's so bad. It was so awful. But my teacher at the time was like, this is amazing. And we wanted to put it into some competition. I was like, no, I don't want to get made fun of. Like, I've got 5 brothers. That's the last thing I want right now. And she's like, you are so bright and you're just squandering it away because like for whatever reason. And it was the very first time that I had like a grown-up conversation at a younger age. And she was like, at the rate that you're going right now, you're not going to graduate high school and you're going to be, on the streets, or the loser was the term that they used back then, but you're going to be a loser. And I was like, okay, whatever. What do you know, Miss Bekessi, if you're listening to this? She bet me $50 that I wouldn't be able to graduate with my class on time, which meant I could not fail a single class from 10, 11, 12. I had to do night school and summer school for the rest of my high school education. So she bet me $50, and I'm like 13 years old at the time. $50 was a lot of money. And I was like, deal. So I worked 20 hours a week at Tim Hortons. I went to night school, went to summer school, and I did all of that to try to avoid staying at home because I didn't like being at home. And I remember just this drive of being like, I'm not going to be this person. I'm not going to, whatever. And then I just, like I said, my home environment wasn't the greatest. So I just wanted to work as much as I could and get out of that situation. And for whatever reason, the word loser really scared me. And it was that kind of motivation by fear that really sparked and lit the fire under my ass to be like, okay, I need to do this. I wasn't like a honor roll student, very much pushing for that, 60s pass grade kind of. So if I hit a 52, I was great. But my stubbornness early on kind of like sparked the whole, you need to grow up and you need to grow up quick kind of thing. Because I've always been great at building relationships and communicating things. And I remember my grade 9 geography teacher was like, just pass it. I don't want you here next year. I faked a seizure in her class to get out of writing a test.
Wow.
I flipped the desk up and everything. And she was like, she thought it was hilarious. She's like, I can't laugh in front of all these people. So she would like held me for detention. She's like, I'm going to give you your exam, bring it home, write the exam, and bring it back to me. I'm here in like whatever they had to do classes in the middle of summer. She's like, bring it back to me and I'll pass you. I just don't want you in my class next year. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'll take geography again. I ended up doing it in night school, so I didn't have to go back into her class. But I was just such a dumb stupid kid, as we all are, but I didn't really have like the push from my parents or like that kind of like that role model type esque, until I very much had a conversation with my grandmother one time, and I was like, my stupid English teacher bet me $50 that I won't be able to graduate my class, and she challenged me for the first time, was like, how did that make you feel? And it was like the first time that an adult kind of like heard me, you know, and like it wasn't like, oh yeah, well, you know, if you work real hard, and like gave me that kind of BS advice. It was more so like, how did that make you feel? And what are you going to do about it? And it was like, put the onus back on me to really force me to think of these solutions and how I'm going to do this and how I'm going to do this. So
I mean, it's crazy at 13 years old that's when it started. Like I have a 13-year-old daughter. I mean, that's grade 8. Like that's really young to have that weight put on you, you know, and yet it pushed. I'm curious. Did Mrs. What's her name? Did she
Bekesi?
Bekesi. So was this like I want to spur this kid on, or was it like, you're not going to do it? I'll bet you $50. You're an idiot. And so what was her intention there? And I'm curious the end of the story. Did she pay up?
She didn't. That was the thing. She did not. She was just
ashamed of yourself.
I know. And that's kind of that's the real knee slapper in the whole thing, was because I did all of this. And there's 2 lessons in it, right? It's sometimes you don't get the reward. Even though you put the hard work in, you don't get the reward. And other times, you know, looking back on it, I'm sure money was tight for her at the time, and she probably didn't have the funds to pay, but she ultimately changed my life in a way that like teachers, I think good teachers strive to.
So positive. So you do look back on her. There is a positive aspect there for sure.
I always look back on it. I'm a huge believer in everything happening for a reason.
Sure.
Luke and I briefly talked on like religion and stuff like that. Like I was raised with Catholic beliefs, but I don't have the great relationship with a God, if you want to call it that. But every single time, again, this is from like really early on, that kind of quote unquote loser's mentality of not taking the lessons out of situations. So anytime anything negative has happened in my life, I'm just always like, something's going to come out of this. Something's going to come out of this. I'm like, I have to go through this right now.
Sure.
And that's what's kind of gotten me through the last kind of 2 years of hardship that I've kind of gone through.
So you obviously kind of through those times and experiences became quite self-reliant and driven.
Yeah.
To see a product, to kind of set your mind to something and follow it through and know that you're not getting any free handouts. This is going to just take hard work. And that's where, I mean, the trades is, I find it's a career that it feeds that so well. I mean, that's one thing I know we've talked about, like the thought of showing up on a job site in the morning with the dance floor's done and your pile of lumber there. And by the end of the day, you got exterior walls standing and you have the sense of satisfaction of the day, like that cause and effect reward is substantial. So I think that the trades is a really good outlet for that, because it's so gratifying because you have something to show for your work that you've put in. And then applying that to like, your own personal development and growth and education and like just kind of pushing things forward and investing and things progressing.
One of my things growing up was I had, like I said, my grandmother's ecosystem were all tradesmen. And these are things that I didn't learn until later on. Majority of them were carpenters. But my dad had such a poor opinion of a tradesperson growing up that it was like almost offensive to him. No pun intended, because I built fences with my uncle. But if I told him that I had gone to work with my uncle, he thought technology was the way of the future. Computers are the only outsorts. The trades are going to be overpopulated, and you were basically a moron if you worked in the trades. And for a long time, I didn't think that I was the type of person that belonged in the trades. And I've always had respect and admiration for people that worked with their hands. And so getting into the trades later in life, I wasn't one of those people that was like, oh, I was a bad student and I just got into the trades and I pushed forward and did all these things. I was navigated to go to school, but I just didn't like school. I didn't like the doctrine of like, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this. And that's what made me such a bad student, because I would challenge those things. There has to be another way. This can't be the only way. And to go to your point, like when you're building houses and stuff, that's what I like about it, is the system is in place, but the process could change just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And every single build is completely different, but the systems are there, the tools, the setup, the everything is there to make your work efficient. But there's problem solving. There's every single, house is different or whatever is not ideal. Like, so for me, I think when I kind of got over that and I found people that were more like-minded, that were tradespeople, I was like, this could be a thing. So I went out and I tried to start it on my own, and I'm not afraid of hard work. And you did that whole hustle thing. And I remember I'd be working until like 10, 11 o'clock at night, trying to, when you're first starting out, like, in clients' houses and stuff like that. And then again, constantly asking that question, there has to be a better way. I love working in the trades, but like, I'm so slow at this. It's unbelievable. Because my quality was like, my attention to detail is not something that I'm willing to waver on. But I'm also not afraid to reach out and ask those dumb questions. So I would reach out to people, and I'm forever grateful for Instagram for kind of opening me up to the world and resources and just other like-minded individuals. But I reached out to people. I remember there was a trades person that I really, really admire, and he had just bought a new house and he needed help moving. So he was like, I need somebody to come help me move this fridge. But he kind of said in like a joking manner. I was like, I will be there at 6 o'clock in the morning to help you move that fridge if you want. And very similar to what you were saying, was like for real? Like, are you serious about this? And I was probably like 22. That's something like a 16-year-old you want from like a 16-year-old, right? And at the time I was working in the corporate world, and I just started doing it. He kind of took me under his wing, and he taught me like a whole bunch of different stuff, and our personalities kind of clashed a little bit, but I was willing to like learn, because I just wanted to know how to do these things to be self-sufficient when you got into your own house and everything. And then when I got let go from my corporate job, that's when the wheels started turning. I was like, I did everything. I was a top performer. I did everything that you were supposed to do and gave up time, energy, and curse words for this company. And they just said, thanks, but no thanks at the end of the day. And it was all because I just didn't get along with my boss, and he bought me out of my contract from his own bonus structure. And when I realized that, like, okay, these companies, it's all political. And if you don't get along with one person, they can completely change your forefront of it. And it was 2 weeks before Christmas, 2016. And then I was like, you know what? We're going to be fine. We're going to be okay. The next day, I built a mantle for somebody, like my neighbor, and made that kind of transaction. And I was like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I can sell. I've got an eye for attention. It's going to cost me a little bit because I'm not as fast as the majority of the people. And then sure enough, you do enough of those, word of mouth, reputation, all sorts of things. You start getting the thing. You build up a clientele. Now, for me, what ended up happening again is so in 2016, I lost my job. I do the mantle, and then I built a table for somebody. And then a week after New Year's in 2017, we find out we're going to have our first child. And I was like, I'd never been more scared in my entire life. I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm going to do. My wife and I are in our first home. And I had a meeting with the boss of the guy who fired me, and he wanted to hire me back into the corporate world. And I was like, this is a situation. I got a mortgage to pay. I got a kid on the way. Like, I'll do whatever I have to do. And he was like, I took the meeting to hear what you were going to say. That's the wrong answer. You need to believe in yourself. You need to take all the drive and ambition that you've done to kind of make you successful under our umbrella and do that for yourself.
Wow.
And that's what I did. It was a super powerful meeting in the middle of the shitty mall in Southern Ontario with crappy coffee, and completely just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do whatever. I read a ton of books, listened to all these podcasts on like how to be successful. And for me, it was just, if you're not sleeping, you're working. If you're not sleeping, you're working. And then we have our daughter, and daughter is sick. She's in the hospital for the first 2 weeks of her life. And that was kind of where I was like, okay, like now I have different responsibility now. And it's just this weird navigation of trying to balance starting a new business, running your business, treating that as your own child, but then also being responsible for, the livelihood of other individuals. And when my wife and I got out of that situation, my wife was very much like, she was a bartender at the time. She's like, I don't want to have to go back to work. I don't want to have to go back to work. And at 3 months of my daughter being born, my wife had to go back to work. And that pressure put so much, I don't even think I've told her about this, but that she didn't do it intentionally, saying like she had to go back to work, but I just felt like I had robbed her of that time she had with her child. We didn't look at it at the time. It was like, oh, I'm grateful that like I get to spend this time with my daughter and build this bond with my daughter that most fathers don't get to do. But we eventually had a conversation where she's like, I want to stay home. I said, well, if you want to stay home, then there's only one way to make that happen is I'm going to have to work more. And at the time I had been offered, so I got offered to be a part of a TV show in the States. They called and they were redoing, this was in 2018, I think. Yeah. They called and they asked me if they were doing a remake of the Move That Bus show. What's the family? No,
Right.
Extreme Home Makeover.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a designer, a carpenter, and then the host. And the host was the, no pun intended, but the I don't know how to say this without offending you. I don't know you very well. The redhead from Modern Family.
Come on. Again, I got fire crotch. I got carrot top.
So I was gonna say fire crotch, and then I looked over and I was like, oh shit, don't say it.
Oh no, it's all good.
I appreciate that. So anyways, I got this call from the producer and like, hey, we saw your Instagram stuff. We really like your personality. Think you'd be a great fit. We'd like to offer this to you. And then I tell my wife, and my wife's like, oh my God, this is like, they don't just offer positions. Like you normally have to do castings and you got to do these different things. And I was like, okay, so like, I think I should do it. Have the call with him. He's like, great, we'd love it. We're going to even work with you to get the visa down here. You have to be in California for, I think it was 10 weeks. And I would have missed my daughter's first birthday. So the timing might be off there a little bit. But I would have missed my daughter's first birthday. The payment was like $150,000 US. And I had just kind of like gotten my business to like where it was, I was doing okay in terms of like the bills are paid or whatever, but very much in a realm of like, this isn't sustainable. I need to like, how am I going to grow? And this opportunity comes up. And it was the first time where like I committed, but then I had to think about the ramifications of that commitment and go back to my wife and be like, what do you think about this? And like, this is going to put a lot of pressure, like new mom, brand new first time baby who had like complications. She was born 6 weeks premature and she was like 4.5 pounds. And so my wife, this is 100% why I chose the right life partner for me. She's like, I'm going to do whatever you want. Like, we'll figure it out. But like, if this is something that you genuinely want, then we will make it work. And I really, really thought about it. And I was like, if it's meant to be, it'll be, but I can't not be there for my kid. Mm-hmm. And I had offered, I was like, I can't do this. I'm really sorry. But like, is there a way that my family can come down They were like, nope, we build for 7 days. We build for 6 days straight, nonstop. And then we do the reveal on the 6th day. The 7th day is travel. And we got 10 episodes booked. So you're on the road. There's zero time for family.
So how long is this? So you're saying goodbye to family potentially for how long?
10 weeks.
Wow.
With a newborn.
Yeah.
First newborn.
And did you have employees?
No, I was
on your own at this
I was
time?
on my own, and I was basically, I had it set up where I worked a ton prior to the baby being born, and then I was going to give myself a month off. So I kind of like had my nest egg there. And then I had found these individuals that had a construction company that were really eager to like work with. They wanted like a Finnish carpenter basically to kind of sub out their stuff, which meant I didn't have to do sales. I didn't have to do find work. I didn't have to do any of the admin stuff that I hated doing. I didn't have to do in my personal time. I could just be in dad mode. I just basically said like, what time do you want me there? Does this like time work for you? And then I just invoiced them. This is my pricing. They were all fine with it. And when I found them, it was like finding family. That like they're still my best friends to this day. We still find ways that we get to work together. We have a podcast called the Real Dad Podcast. Shameless plug. But we talk about like the struggles of fatherhood and you know, just have real conversations about like what it can mean to be a real good dad in particular.
It's interesting kind of hearing that, you know, that journey, and you know, like a few things came to mind. Like I think when all of us grew up, I mean, Brad and I are a little bit older than you, but there was a bit of a stigma, I think, of the trades.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're not going to go to university and not going to get
100%.
some degree, or you're just going to be a tradesperson, a laborer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that was kind of the stigma of the time. And then you still did have some people that were like, no, working with your hands, you know, it's super valuable. It's always relevant. There was definitely some of that, but there was a bit of a stigma to being just
Blue
a
collar.
tradesperson.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, a lot of our extended family, cousins are like super highly educated, you know, very, very successful. And so we kind of in some ways feel like the black sheep of the family.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at the same time, it's turned out we've enjoyed it. It's been positive. But hearing your story and all of those heavy decisions to try and make and balance things out, there's a huge amount of stress and anxiety that comes with that. And as a man trying to provide for your family, trying to find those boundaries of like, how do I work as much as I need to work to provide for us? How do I engage with my wife? How to be a dad? How do I not be an ass to the people that I'm closely related to? You know, your story of going through all that, you know, mine with my business and family and kids, and Brad too. You know, he and I framed together for years. He had other endeavors and businesses, and then, you know, building his own house. Like there's been, I think for all of us, which is not unique to the three of us as tradespeople, there's been low times. There's been hard, difficult, challenging, depressing times of anxiety and stress and worry. And that's incredibly prevalent in the trades.
Yeah.
You know, you're combining financial issues and marriage and difficult people you work with physical, manual, hard labor. You know,
And the
it's
insecurities, right? So it's like being in the trades, you're subjected to like a pretty harsh environment. In some cases, it can be pretty toxic. So, you know, there's a real struggle of, you know, masculinity and like what that looks like. And some people, you know, aren't vulnerable enough to, or fortunate enough to have peer groups or like, you know, be able to express the struggles that they're going through. So they slip into, you know, certain types of substance abuses or other things. And then that ends up becoming a ripple effect to the people in their ecosystem.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, you know, but look at me, I'm super like successful. Absolutely not. Like my mental health, you know, I touched on it briefly, like for the last 2 years has been garbage because it's a constant change. Like it's not like when you get, you know, you go out on your own and you figure these things out and like, okay, we finally have, you know, a decent income. I used to laugh all the time because, you know, it's not dead, that the stigma around the trades. Like my family, they're all they're all first responders. They make really good money, but they have to work crazy overtime to make that good money.
Mm-hmm.
And they all thought that Robin and I were super poor. Like they were just like, they would look and be like, feel bad for us because I'm driving around in a 20-year-old pickup truck, and I can't go to the dinners on the or the lunches on Saturday afternoons because I'm trying to get caught up on my things. But they're all like, if you guys need anything, whatever. And they just like, they literally thought that we were poor. Meanwhile, my wife's not working. My 2-year-old's in Montessori school. I'm doing all these things, but they're not giving me that outlet of being like, are you okay? Or checking in to be like, how are you doing? Or even like creating that safe environment for me to unload the pressures in a way where it doesn't seem like, oh, poor Mark. It just a relatable, sensible, because it's like 9 times out of 10, a lot of tradespeople, all they need is a community where they can just like, their feelings are validated. They know that it's a struggle, and they're not alone. Like that's where I think a lot of times people are just like, no one understands, no one's going to get it. And if you're within that ecosystem or unfortunate, if it is an unfortunate, situation where your spouse and you aren't on the same page or anything, you're like, you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand. No one does, it's like, imagine being in an environment where like you come from a corporate family and you're the only one that loves to work in the trades and you are making really good money, but people don't look at that as being successful. It's like, if you're a part of a crew and your bills are paid and you've got a little bit left over at the end of the month and you're happy with your family, what's wrong with that level of success? It's not. It's if you're in the trades, it's the first comment, like, how's business? Who are you working for? But like, how long do you have to be in your apprenticeship until you can go out on your own? Like, these are the questions that people are asked, and they don't understand. There's a certain weight that puts on people when they're forced to sit there and be like, it just adds an insecurity to it. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, I got 4 years until I can do my apprenticeship. Meanwhile, they're not even happy. They don't even want to do an apprenticeship to be, whatever.
And that's also what's, I think, and unfortunately our society is pushing so hard that you are what you do, that like your value is so wrapped up in the job that I have, the truck I drive, the clothes I wear, the lady I'm with, all this stuff. Right. And so it creates these false lifestyles. Right. And then people through Instagram or Facebook, they can post the pictures of all this great stuff and they can create this life that they want people to think, that's my life. That's who I am. This is, and so many of these people are just hurting inside because they're not having real conversations, talking about their real problems. And, and I got together with a couple of friends from high school. I graduated in 2000 and it's crazy. I got together 2 friends I hadn't seen in years and years and years. And I sat down, we had this great conversation, but I started telling them about my mental health process, and how I got depressed and it was huge anxiety and I ended up going on medication and I ended up going through counseling, all this kind of stuff. And it was like they had never had a conversation with another man like that, like I just put it all out there. And all of a sudden by the end of the conversation, my other guy, one of my best friends from high school, starts telling me about some of his stuff.
Absolutely.
And then the other guy starts telling me about his stuff, and they had never even talked about it with each other.
100%.
And all of a sudden, here's 3 guys that, were almost in tears being like, we just had this most beautiful conversation and we were able to just like support each other. But like you said earlier, like it's so rare. Like people like when I think of the friends that I have here and other guys in this room, like it is so rare to have other men to be able to have that conversation with, to be able to like talk about your struggles. And when you do have that, you realize you are so blessed, so fortunate to have those friends. And like, it's crazy to me.
One of the most powerful things I think, like I'm holding back tears now, but like one of the most powerful text messages I've ever had was with a good friend, Dave. And he asked the question, like, how you doing? And then it's built into us to be like, I'm good. How are you? And then you get to see the 3 dots and you get how are you really doing? And just being able to be like, dude, I'm not okay. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. And I know that he's got a bunch of stuff too. And he knows that I'm going to be okay. And he's like, but you also have me. You also have Robin. You also have, whatever. And even being in a sense of being like, well, I don't think Robin can handle, what I'm going through. Robin's my wife. And then, asking those simple questions, but have you asked her? Because if not, like these are the life partners that we have. And if you suppress these things, you're almost robbing them of the opportunity to give what they vowed to give to you when you got married or when you agreed to be life partners. And you, for whatever reason, you're just like, I don't think they can handle it. Now they can't. But when you break down, you're like, okay, you know what? Hey, like these are the things that I'm going through. I'm not trying to take away from anything from motherhood or what you're going through. These are the things. Some of the best conversations come from having that vulnerability and being able to like self-audit what makes you tick and like what kind of brings you out of things. Because it's poison. Living in a toxic and being like so self-righteous that and we talked about this. First of all, Luke made me hike some mountain this morning, which I'm super grateful he did because the scenery is just top notch in British Columbia. But we're walking down this mountain and he was saying like, these toxic people that are so self-righteous and being like, I hate stupid people or I hate the blah, 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 blah. Like, what's the common denominator, right? Like, it's you. It's your outlook. And I think so many of us before, speaking for myself, we were raised in that environment of like those are the conversations that you overheard, and like who knows what our parents had to go through, and like they had their own kind of coping mechanisms, having parents that were in the war or affected by it. But again, like growing up, you're just kind of like, the only way that you can truly be happy is if you have like a really, really good, honest conversation with yourself and you figure out like the systems that make you and you voice that. And then when you're not kind of in line there, you have somebody that you can reach out to and say, I need some help. I need to get back on track.
Like a big part of things I've been chewing on lately in like all facets of life and work and relationship is acknowledging that there's a point of balance to kind of find in all of those realms. I don't want to go too far in either extreme. I want to kind of hold the truth and tension and kind of find this happy medium. As far as being a tradesman, I mean, the stereotypical macho kind of tradesman mentality is like, how are you? I'm good. Mm-hmm. Getting her done. Things are fine.
Just another day in paradise.
Get her done. And there's a value in that, and that there's some mind over matter, and that this is a hard job, and it's uncomfortable, and it hurts, and I'm going to be tired. And I'm like, but I'm not going to focus on that, or I'm going to be just depressed all the time. I'm actually going to like try and find value in it, and I'm going to be persistent and have self-discipline, and I'm going to actually make the best of a hard situation. So in doing that, you kind of like develop this resilience that enables you to do the hard thing that needs to be done. But it also can foster a stubbornness to not have the willingness to be vulnerable.
Yep.
And at the same time, I don't want to be overly vulnerable and just be super, glom onto people, and everything is always hard. It's so, how's it going? I'm so busy. I'm so tired. You can go to the other extreme where you're like, I'm exhausted. I'm stressed. I'm so tired. Or I'm totally fine. I'm killing it. It's hard work and I'm kicking ass. So trying to find this happy medium where I can acknowledge the reality of the difficulty and hardship. I can also see the value in keep my head down and getting the hard thing done, but then doing that in an environment where you have support and honesty. So there's lots of times around, my peers where those kind of questions come up. How you doing? Yeah, I'm good. So like, how was like, stuff with work and home? Like, has that been pretty smooth? Yeah. Well, actually, and then also now we're actually talking.
You break
Now we're
down
actually
those barriers.
communicating. There's like this barrier that comes down, and then there's real discussion that takes place. I mean, I find it fascinating too that this is something that I try to focus on in a relationship on a general basis. I'm an introvert. I don't like big social gatherings with lots of people and talking about the weather and stuff. Like I'd far rather just find one person and let's go sit in a corner somewhere and tell me about you. Tell me what you're all about. So I really enjoy those intimate sort of situations versus that kind of walk around in a big room, people I hardly ever know, that I hardly know, and talk about nothing for an hour. I'm like, that stresses me out, makes me exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you're similar in some degrees because you flew in yesterday and basically from like noon till 8:30 last night, we hung out. Then we hiked up Giant's Head Mountain here. And we have talked about.
Did you guys hold hands?
Almost.
I recorded it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we we talked about real life,
real life.
And
we're strangers for the most part.
Yeah. And so
That's cool.
that's so important, I think, to have that vulnerability and willingness to step beyond that kind of posturing of like, got it all together, it's all good and great, and actually step into real life and discuss the things that really, really matter. And in the midst of those times too, acknowledge that we're different people. We're wired different. There's going to be similarities and differences. You're going to think what you think for a reason, and I've got to respect that. I'm going to have my perspective for a reason. Hopefully you can respect that. And we can also then define those things and have discussion along the way and both learn something and both broaden our perspective versus becoming bitter, old, hardened tradesmen that are opinionated assholes.
I 100% agree. The only thing I would add in there is the word comfort. I think a lot of times that's missing from the equation is a form of being comfortable enough within some sort of environment. Again, I'm a big proponent on energy being real, and you have, you create this comfort that I know that I can confide in you and there's not going to be any judgment. And even if there was judgment, I don't care because I'm comfortable in myself to just let it out there. And for whatever reason, if what I'm saying resonates with you and then then you're meant to hear that. And I think we're aligned. I think another example is something that I have struggled with earlier on, specifically again with my wife, and coming back to what I had said earlier about it, it led to an interesting conversation with her. Was I would typically, especially in humor, when we were talking about the tool belt and coming home, the whole bit was like trying to hide this purchase from my wife. And I showed her this bit and I was so proud of it in the video. And she said to me, you always make me look like the villain. And it really, really hurt because she's the furthest thing from the villain for me. And so for me, I was like, I was just trying to do it to resonate with like other people. Right. And she was like, I know what you're doing, but it's sad that other people have to live their life like with a person that they don't respect or that they don't have that comfort there. And for a long time, you mentioned like you go into the trades and you're cold and you're tired and you're just working in, minus, well, in BC, you guys are spoiled with the weather, but like, I shouldn't say that from Ontario either. Alberta people are going to hear this and be like, you don't know anything. But, you're outside. Let's say you're doing siding or something. You're outside. You're working all day, 10, 12-hour days. You get home and your wife is, overstimulated because she was home with the kids. And my first defense is like, you don't even know like what I just went through. Like, okay, like I would love to stay at home with the kids. And like, you get into this, like this comparison game, right? This like, I'm going to call it a dick measuring contest, but it doesn't really matter. Anyways, we won't get into that, but you have this back and forth.
Yeah.
And it takes a really, really hard conversation to realize that like with your partner anyways, you're in this together, And again, I'm on a job site working with a bunch of old timers and they're all just like bragging about how their second or third wives are better than their firsts because they're more understanding that the job comes first. And I was like, I don't want to be you. I want to be nothing like you. I love my wife, I love my family, and I don't want to break that. I'm not willing to risk that because the job comes first. We're putting we're putting pieces of wood together, guys.
Mhm.
You know, like it's important, but like when you're all said and done, you know, what are you going to look back on? That you could drive a nail in one swing? No offense, Luke. You know what I mean? But like the time it took you to learn that, you could have also, again, I'm just using that as an analogy, but like you could have made a lifelong memory for your kid
Mhm.
just by showing up to a soccer game or something, you know? And that's the struggle. It would be 4:38 and I was like, oh, I just need to trim out this one room and then I can be done. But then you've got, you know, pack up and clean up and all that stuff on top of it. So you're not getting home until 7, 8 o'clock at night. And you're having these conversations. You're walking into an unknown situation because you don't know what it was like. But meanwhile, your wife just had to go through, you know, a whole day of being pulled in 17 different directions. Because being a stay-at-home parent is a lot of hard work too. And it's not equal playing fields. You can't compare them because it's a different form of weight.
But it's also like I think that it's just as like, if not more so, I found that like when especially guys, unfortunately, come home after, you know, I've been working my ass off for this long and, you know, there should be a hot meal on the, you know, like I've had the luxury, I would say, to be able to be a stay-at-home dad for a good chunk of time. And my wife, like, kind of, we talked about education. She was a teacher, like she's still is a teacher, right? And so I got to be at home with the kids. And so when I come home and I see what it takes to raise, especially in those early years when you have those young kids, I'm like, I would absolutely rather go swing a hammer with my buddies and be doing that than have this job. Like it is not just like it's a legit job that the amount that moms go through, that they don't go crazy, and a lot of them do.
Yeah.
You know, I think I think we put them in a really unfortunate place that I don't think they deserve at all. Right? I think
No,
they're so.
You're spot on, and the stigma in the trades is just like, it's, you know, your role and this, that, and the other, and you know, and you use derogatory terms to kind of like put down each other, and it's been a really, like, the last couple of years for me has been a really big eye opener in terms of like how much struggle parenting is, business ownership is, like, and just life in general. And
Is that kind of what you said earlier? You mentioned kind of the last 2 years has been the hardest, you know, from mental health.
It's been transitional for us. We've gone from 1 kid to 2.
Sure.
The second one was crazy sick in the first years of his life. I was working on I was project management for an HGTV show, which was like super under budgeted, and it was my first big opportunity. So like I really wanted to make an impact. So now I'm leaving like my wife for 18 hours a day to focus on this quote unquote like career move, leaving her with, you know, 2 young kids and literally not taking her mental health or like even her time into consideration for my own selfish needs. And then on top of all of that, well, like we were I was in a position where I lied to her and got caught about it. And there was a real opportunity, like there was a real conversation of like, I thought my marriage was going to be over. And it really took me to take a step back and be like, how did I get here? Like where, like at what world did I feel like I couldn't trust her in the thing? Cause I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just lied because I knew that she had a lot on her plate and I didn't want her to like overthink a certain situation. So I was like, you know, I'm like, oh no, it was something stupid. Like we were like, I shouldn't say stupid because it meant something, but I don't want to go into like crazy details about it or whatever, but it was just basically I said that I was alone and I wasn't alone. Nothing happened, but it was very much like on the back end of it. She was like, why would you lie about that? And I was like, I don't know. I wanted to spare your feelings and I had to take ownership. I had to be embarrassed. And I was like, this is the last thing that I do not want to lose my family, especially over this. I'd take a step back and then pivot and then have a real conversation of her being like, I don't want to be roommates with you. And if that's what it takes, then I'll get a job and we'll figure this stuff out. So a part of me gets addicted to being overworked and struggle and coming up with solutions for things. So it's been very challenging for me to like actually have some breathing room and spare time and having days where I'm like able to be the provider. Like, I shouldn't say provider, but like my wife is working and I'm at home with my son and it's a Wednesday and I'm like, oh, I should be doing a whole bunch of different things, you know? But again, I'm trying to set my business up where I can I don't have to be on the tools every single day and I don't have to stress about like where our next meal is going to come from. And so on top of all of that, we ended up moving. We sold our first house and we moved to a new house and we're like way far out of our comfort zone. Like we're both city convenience people. We moved to the country. We're on a well. I don't know how to live on a well, you know? So it's all sorts of these different things, changing personally, changing professionally, trying to be a better spouse, a better father, a better communicator. And I have people that work on my team now. So if you want to call them staff, sure. But it's a better, you know, provider. And again, I'm struggling with the biggest thing for me is personal fitness. I've always been a big component or a big advocate of like your personal fitness. It's just who has the time, you know? Again, not throwing shade at Luke again, but
why are you looking at me? Like,
you're just the epitome of health. They're everything I want to be, with the red hair and the crotch fire and all that stuff.
And the belly and stuff like that.
That's all good.
It's interesting though. Like I think just while we're on the topic, I think when I, and we've touched on it a little bit, but when I built my house, and I was only able to do that really because, you know, I'd learned all this stuff from Luke and building all that kind of stuff. And I found that as I was building it, I basically came to a point where through the winter and through, and I was doing this all by myself. So Luke would come down and kind of help me like with the plans, you know, here's this, and then would basically leave for a couple of weeks. I would do it. And so every day on my own in the winter time, moving tarps, snow, and I was enjoying it. I wasn't getting down, but then as I got through and started doing all the framing, I came to a place where, I was waking up in the morning and I just had this like feeling. I'm like, just something was off, but I'd never had anxiety, never had I hadn't experienced anything like that. And so what do? You talk to your friends, you talk to the people that support you. And the natural thing for them to do is like, you got this, dude, just push through. Like it's fine. And
that's just them thinking that they're being supportive.
Exactly. So it's not, I don't look at that and be like, you guys pushed me into this huge crash. It's not that at all. Cause I would have said the same thing. I would have been like, yeah, you're close, you know, just slow down, whatever. But that was the first signs of my body saying, hey, you're not doing so well. You need to actually calm down. You need to chill. You need to take some time. And, you know, but I did, I pushed through. And then it came to the point where my wife, you know, in the morning we'd get up, we'd have coffee. We'd had to start making lists for me cause I was my brain was starting to shut down even more foggy. And it came to the point where, I was walking around my house with my tool belt on. I didn't even know what to do. There were so many jobs for me to do by myself. And I'm like, I would walk to a corner, I'd grab a tool. I'm like, I'd put it down. I'd go over to another thing. I'm like, should I start that? And my brain is just starting to scramble. Right. And so I think for other people that come to that point, and it's not for everybody. I think sometimes that my situation, that's what Luke can go way more than I can go. He can just like put his brain to the and be fine. And sometimes I'm like, how have you not crashed after doing all this kind of stuff? Not to say that he hasn't had his ups and downs too. I've seen it. And I've, you know, all of a sudden, you know, him and I'll have a conversation. I'm like, dude, you know, are you okay? You know, and he'll have to slow down and he'll have to change his thing. But in the end, I pushed and pushed until I had a breakdown, like just mentally inside. And I didn't even know it. I just thought I was going crazy. Like I literally thought, oh, I'm going to be in the mental institute for the rest of my life. And that just brought up all this stuff and I'm going to be right. It was just crazy. And then, so I took a few days off and then I went back up and I was working on the roof And I remember phoning Luke being like, I'm asking him how to like do simple things that I should know easily how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't even put this piece of trim on. Like, how do I nail it? And that's when Luke was like, something's not right. Like he knows this stuff, no problem. And then again, I was up on the roof and I had like just this overwhelming feeling, an anxiety attack. Again, I have no idea what an anxiety attack is.
Mm-hmm.
My body just goes into like this, I get off and I phone my wife and like something's going wrong. I don't know what's happening. My brain's like shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward a bunch through a bunch of counseling, a bunch of, like I said, medication, seeing doctors, changing up my routine, becoming active, and a lot of prayer from a lot of friends and a lot of support. And that's the beauty that I have of these friends that I have around me.
Yeah.
Like legitly, I stopped at about drywall stage. Everything else was done. And I had Luke, guys in this room. I had people from, Andy Spear and his crew that just stepped in and finished my house. Like,
Awesome.
Cause I was like, literally the doctors were like, you're done. My counselor was like, you have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
You're, and I was fried for like a year and I slowly kind of like inched my way back into normal life again. But I had people that just came and just loved me in that way and just finished my house. And now I have this beautiful home that I get to live in because of that network and that support.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting though, how some people look at that. My wife and I were a little bit different, where I saw these guys come in and I knew that they loved me. And I was like, I allowed them to do that. You said this earlier, you need to allow your friends and your wife and these people close to you to love you. But sometimes us as men and women, we'll do that. We're like, no, it's okay. I got it, because we feel like if we allow them to help us, that we've failed in some way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little bit more how my wife held it. She almost felt this guilt of having all these people come and finish her health. It was like this guilty, like we've failed, we're not good enough. And it was an interesting journey for her too, to come to this place too, where it's like, no, this is actually a beautiful, beautiful thing that these people have come and they've loved us in this way. And now I can relate, and she can relate to all these other people that have gone through mental health stuff. And we can now support people in a completely different way now than we would have through going through that experience.
And that comes down to, it was something as simple as Luke picked me up from the airport yesterday. We went out for lunch and we almost got in a little squabble about who's going to pay for lunch.
Right.
And it turns into like, how am I ever going to repay you?
Mm.
And for your example, like what comes to mind is, again, I don't know your wife. I've never met her or anything, but if I were in that situation, there's two ways of looking at it. It's like, I don't know how I'm ever going to repay people for like their service to come and help us when we need it.
Yeah.
But you don't know how many times you have paved the way or brought these people peace and has developed that love for you to be able to be like, no, put their lives on hold to come and help you. It's like their form of repaying you, even though you haven't seen what you've done to these individuals to kind of spark that initiative. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we, all three of us have quite a deep desire and value of community and supporting one another, and the value in being vulnerable, which kind of leads me into like, the talk that you've had of the future that you see and what you're passionate about moving forward, and kind of fostering that and providing for people. What does the next 5 years ideally look like for you as far as developing that more officially?
So for me, again, it's very much, I think what brings me joy, I'm very much like a creative person. I like to kind of come up with an idea and execute it. We just bought a new house. So classic tradesperson, I'm not happy with any of the finishes. I want to do this. I want to do an addition. I want to build a shop. I want to do all these things, but like, who has the time? So my mind goes to, okay, how do I set it up where I can make an income? I can be home on the weekends. I can do the work that I want to do on my house, but I also have time for my spouse. You're looking at all those things and you're like, there's no way. There's no way, because your evenings and weekends got to go to doing all those things. So for me, it's looking into it. What are my strengths? I'm very good at being creative, storytelling, certain things. So I can use my Instagram platform to work with brands that I truly believe in, whether you want to call that as an influencer or whatever. But there's brands like, I'm not being paid to plug any brands or anything right now, but there are certain brands that like you had mentioned, Tommy Hilfiger. If you could reach out to Tommy Hilfiger and say, "Hey, I'd like to put together a video for you," and X, Y, and Z or whatever, develop a partnership, and here's what I need in return. And you look at that from a business standpoint. Okay, if I was going to go trim out a house or finish a basement, I would make this much in profit. The marketing world has endless amounts of money. It's insane how much money is out there. And it's insane how much people seem to think like, oh, I need to use Instagram to like sell these phony or push certain products on it onto their followers. Like that's not the case at all. You can do it in an honest way, in a real way. And you can do it in a way where you don't even need to post it to your own platform. You can, again, given the talent, you can create these things for these companies that they can then put money behind and push on the back end, right? So to answer your question, the next 5 years is trying to figure out how I can generate an income and not necessarily be on the tools unless I want to be. I love to create, I love to storytell. So I'm now trying to get more into like a YouTube type system where I can document the build of transforming our new space, because we have acreages and we have the opportunity to do that. And I do have this kind of, I'm going to call it a small area of opportunity where I'm talented. I've got two different types of talents. I'm very talented in the finishing aspect of certain things, and I've got that background of like coming up with unique solutions for finish work. But then I'm also good at like, having an eye for video and that sort of stuff. And then realizing what I'm not good at, maybe product photography or things like that, I can hire somebody to then help me do that. So I've now worked with a couple of different brands that are more lifestyle brands, but not so much trade brands, which again, figuring out what my profitability needs to be and then mirroring that into what sort of service I can offer these brands. I've kind of set up a separate business now, where it's, whether you want to call it influencer marketing or just even being able to put together like these little micro commercials for brands like Toyota Canada. I was able to work with them to shoot a truck commercial, which is like super cool. But then again, you get into this thing where like, I'm super proud of it. I want to post it on my social, and then people like don't really resonate with it. Right. So yeah, the next 5 years for me again is change, but it's also accepting the fact that you don't need to like overload your plate. You don't need to be working 24/7. You just have to kind of figure things out and then try.
So it seems like to a pretty significant degree, you're trying to structure your life in a way that's sustainable, that's healthy. And then also we talked before about trying to encourage that amongst our community and provide assistance and help to people that are maybe struggling to find balance.
Absolutely.
And that have dealt with anxiety and stress, that are tradespeople on either the stay-at-home side or the person that's on the tools.
Yep.
And what that looks like as far as giving support to that community. Like it's such a hugely relevant realm that every tradesperson deals with to some level, and to try and really promote community and mental health and vulnerability. I know it was something we had talked about that you were wanting to spearhead to some degree too.
Yeah. So I think like obviously mental health and men's mental health in particular, because I am a male, I don't know anything about female mental health. I'm a tradesperson. I think it's super important to at least provide people an opportunity or a form of comfort for them to be able to express their stories. So a lot of it is, for me anyways, I've got tons of different ideas and how we navigate things, but something that I've been working on in the back end of things is setting up a fund with CAMH. So my hats, for example, the tree, I get a lot of comments about like, I love your logo, but like, what is it? And I've had like hunters want to buy it. And for me, the tree symbolizes life. It symbolizes strength, and it symbolizes a form of like hope. And that's what I want to be able to give to other people. So, for me, when I made the hat, for example, that, everybody else, I mean, you've seen in your videos and stuff like that, I don't try to sell them, because eventually I want to get it to a place where I can, any form of tree related product that I sell will automatically just fund this I'm not going to call it a campaign. We'll call it a fund. Where we set up something where somebody who's struggling from a trades related issue, and whether that's whether that's the individual themselves or somebody that's within their ecosystem, if they need access to counseling, if they need access to groceries, like just something where we can, I don't know how it works on the back end yet. Again, early adoption of an idea. But if we could be a space where people that need the help, and I'm not talking about people that are like addicted to drugs and they're just looking for, like a space to kind of go, I shouldn't say that just addicted to drugs or anything. That's a struggle in itself. I'm saying people that want to make a difference, that genuinely good people that need help. They might be too proud to ask for it. They just need a break. I want to be that break for them, and I want to give them the seed that they need to plant their own tree, basically. And so you might see online some other people wearing my hat, but I don't ever plan on marketing them in a way that's like, oh, that's a Remarkable Woodworks hat. I want the tree to be a symbol of strength and unity amongst tradespeople.
Build a community.
And build that community kind of silently. And then have some sort of platform to create awareness around the struggles of mental health in the trades. And you don't have to be a man to participate in that. You could be a spouse, you could be a tradeswoman, you could be anything. But I do definitely want to be, when it's all said and done, I want to be a part of the solution of breaking down those barriers for other people.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's kind of gives the history of, the journey that you've been on and the struggle that it is that you've experienced, trying to structure your current situation and future in a way that's healthy and sustainable, embracing community to give yourself that support and be that support to other people, and then pay that forward in developing a community that very intentionally offers support to people who need a break and encourage good communication. That's super awesome.
But I think there's a lot of times people come up with a certain vision of what a tradesperson is, and then they they label everyone. They think everybody is along those lines. But there's so many of us, like you had just said, that are like-minded individuals, but for whatever reason, we don't allow each other to get to know each other because we're not willing to break down that first barrier of, I'm a framer, but I'm a framer, and not labeling it as like what you do is not who you are kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I know we're probably getting close to wrapping up, but I just had a couple burning questions. And so maybe it's like a lightning round where you just got to like.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
sounds good.
Really quick. Toronto.
Leafs.
Are you a Leafs fan?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Well, I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
Okay, that's fair.
So my, I think, don't quote me on this, my grandmother's sister's son is Paul Coffey.
No way.
So he's like my third cousin.
And you do know where Paul Coffey just ended up?
I don't.
Just yesterday, day before, the new coach for the Edmonton Oilers, not head coach, but he is now actually, yeah. So there's a new guy, and Paul Coffey is now like the defensive coach guy. So he is now working for those, your buddy cousin. Would you say he was?
He's like my third. He's my mom's second cousin. So whatever that is to me, or maybe my mom's first cousin. I don't know. But a lot of our families, because I'm not like a big hockey person.
Sure.
But like a lot of our families' teams come from wherever Paul played at that particular point in time.
And isn't Crosby from Ontario?
Not even close. He's from Nova Scotia.
He is from Nova Scotia. McDavid is from Ontario.
Yes, he's a Toronto boy. Yeah.
Raptors, are you a fan?
Yes. Yeah. It was wild to be the age that I was when they won the ship and being able to kind of like witness that in the city. It was super cool. But in terms of sports, I'm like a huge football fan. I love American football.
Okay.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Okay, Drake.
Big fan of Drake.
Big fan of Drake. Okay.
Fan
I
of
wasn't sure because I know he's one of those Toronto dude guys.
Not new Drake. New Drake is like, I don't know what he's trying to do. Like he needs to accept that he's getting older, but yeah, new Drake is weird Drake.
Okay. And so what's it like? Because again, and why there's the Leafs fan, because it's funny because I know you're not a Leafs fan, but there's something about Toronto guys. Now, I'm not trying to like say that, you know,
I know exactly what you're saying.
But there's something about Toronto, like in Canada, and I don't know, like I almost feel like this is great to actually know, because I don't know if I actually really know any Toronto guys. So this is great because you seem like a pretty reasonable, great human being that I could become really good friends with. But there's something about, I don't know, would you say Toronto? There's just like this arrogant air, like we're almost American, but we're not. But we you know, we're like right there. What's the stigma there?
Being a Leaf fan is the closest thing you can be to an American, in my opinion.
Interesting.
They're just
there goes
year.
all of our Toronto people watching there.
And like, American listeners too.
I didn't say a word about anybody.
No, it's just, there's an arrogance there. Every year they seem to think that they're the center of the whole entire thing. Again, I'm not a hockey person.
Yeah. I
wish nothing, but I think it's a really cool thing to get to witness a Canadian team. And I love that about our country.
Yeah.
It's no matter what team you choose to go for, if a Canadian team is in it, you become a fan of that team.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And fair enough. And I'm all Oilers. I love the Vancouver. Like again, if it's a Canadian team in the end, I will definitely, you know, cheer for Toronto.
Absolutely, 100%.
For sure.
But the Toronto fans are the worst people on the earth, and I don't have a problem saying that because I just whatever come at me in the comments. But it's every year they're ready to start the parade. Yeah. Every year it's amazing. And then every game that they lose, it's someone else's fault. Yeah. There's no accountability. They're ruthless with their players to a point where and the media is god awful. Yeah. And the players just don't want to be here. Yeah. Like they went after, when Reimer was a goalie, they went after his wife and like a whole bunch of threats and everything. Who in their right mind would want to play in that type of organization where the fan base is like threatening your family because you let in a goal or like, get out of here, man. Like, anyways, it's sports are great and I love it, but it's not, I don't know.
I was just curious, you know, I was just curious, you know, and again, love Toronto. Some of our most amazing Canadians come from that place. Great musicians.
It's Toronto.
It's
Toronto, not Toronto.
The
second T is silent.
So my brother owns a vehicle. It's a Toyota. Sorry, it's a Tundra. Who makes a Tundra?
Toyota.
You hear that?
Yeah, he did say it weird.
What do you say? Toyota?
Toyota.
Toyota. So
you speak different.
We say Toyota, like a toy. Toyota. You say like Toyota. You said it earlier, and I'm like, did you say Toyota?
There's been a few little things you've said. I'm like, did he slip his words a bit, or is that actually talks? There's a few.
So it's a little bit of like the Eastern kind of thing going in there, like car. Would you say that? You're not.
Hey, boy, we go down by the bay and see what happens there, boy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's interesting.
So what are your in 10 seconds, what are your thoughts of BC, the first time being out west here?
A 10 out of 10, recommend anybody on earth come visit this place. It is like everywhere you look is a picture. Like walking up that mountain, I'm sure I lost a lot of respect from Luke because I was like, I just gotta take a picture. Just gotta take a video.
No, I was just proud.
Yeah.
I'm like, you definitely take lots of pictures. It's the best place ever.
I literally was like, I was saying it so many times. I was like, okay, this is gonna be the last one. He's like, yeah, sure. And then my camera was like, nope, last one, battery dead. I was like, and I just put a new battery in. So that'll tell you how much footage I gotta go.
And you said you grew up in the 80s?
86. I was born in 86.
And you've mentioned a couple of times you MacGyvered something. Luke and I both made eye contact. Did you watch MacGyver?
My brother was born in 74. So yes, we watched MacGyver a lot in the house. My oldest brother is like 9 years older than I am. So yeah.
There's a lot of people watching, listening that will have no context for MacGyver.
So that's
just sad.
I gained a lot of respect because when I had said, I was like, I'm going to MacGyver, whatever. And, trying to figure out solutions to things and old tradespeople, I shouldn't say old, but like older tradespeople on Instagram are just like, do you even know how young, what MacGyver means? I'm like, listen, I dress like I'm 22, but I'm a lot older than what I look. All right.
Okay. That was all my questions. I just had to get those out.
You want to know what's funny though, is in the airport, I could tell who was going to BC and who wasn't. Cause there's like a certain vibe that you guys all have. Like, yep, that's a BC guy for sure. There's like a sway in your walk. And like, you've got this kind of like
super good looking, just
rigid, everything I want to be in a human being. That's what you guys have. Great. So,
well, on that note, we'll probably wrap it up here. Thanks so much for coming all the way out here. It was quite the flight. You're getting back late when you head back here. So thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely.
And it was a pleasure spending the last 20 hours with you. It's great. Thanks, Brad, for joining us. Thanks for watching and listening. Have a great flight home. And
endings are always the worst, eh? You have no idea what to say. Like, what do I do with my hands?
I know.
Endings are like, you just,
you do the dude perfect and what do they do? A pound it and a hat throw.
Yeah, it's really
see you, noggin, something or other.
Yeah. See you when I see you.
Right on. Okay. Thanks, everybody.